You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast, presented by Pat's Pulpit.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. Your boy Pat Lane, as always, here with Matt St. Jean. Matt, it was a fun weekend of football, and we're going to get into that. But I am really interested in this OC search, man. This is pretty crazy.
I've been the visual that I kind of had enter my brain today is like you're sitting in a waiting room, like getting ready for an interview, and then it's Bill Belichick that comes out, and he's like, "All right, let's do this." Like, that is just, I can picture Bill Belichick in a lot of situations, but for some reason, interviewing people is just not one of the ones I can do.
Yeah, it's strange. And it's one of those things that, like, this was all, like, very cloak and dagger for, a long time. We never heard about interviews happening. And so now it's like, this guy's getting linked, and that guy's getting linked, and I'm sitting there like, it'd be pretty dope to have Sean Jefferson or Keenan McCardell. Like, that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? And then, and so you kind of go back and forth with this stuff. It's definitely giving the fans and anyone interested some entertainment right now, and a lot of stuff to talk about too, So if you had to guess, now it's funny because Ian Rappaport tweeted something out that said, the Patriots are still interviewing, but they might not be come Friday, which I thought was interesting. I'm like, that's interesting.
Who is it? Keenan McCardell who goes Friday?
McCardell,
the last one.
McCardell, I think, was today, I believe.
I thought Sean Jefferson was today. McCardell was tomorrow. I could have that backwards.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. But
and Bill O'Brien went today.
Yeah, today or yesterday was O'Brien, and I know either Jefferson or McCardell went today. And so they might be done tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then
they said when they put out the statement last week, they said we're gonna be doing interviews next week. Well,
right,
it's the end of next week.
Yes, it is. And it's interesting. And I posted on Twitter earlier, but I'm at the point right now, I'm getting greedy. I want Bill O'Brien, and I want either Sean Jefferson or Keenan McCardell. And the thing is, for me, is that and Jefferson, was in Detroit when they drafted Megatron. And Megatron has said that he's the best wide receivers coach he's ever seen at any level on any team.
Alex Barth tweeted that out earlier.
Yeah.
Great little quote there.
Oh, yeah. And so, it can't hurt. We have had a real hard time developing wide receivers here. Getting another guy in here that can relate to the wide receivers and coaches the wide receivers up really well. Now, I don't know, like, what gives me pause is that, has Arizona really developed wide receivers well? I don't know. Like, Christian Kirk has done significantly better in Jacksonville than he did in Arizona, but is that a product of Kyler and the offense, or is that a product of the coaching? It's hard to know.
Yeah, and it's that scheme they run in Arizona. I have had my apprehensions with Cliff Kingsbury for a number of reasons, and the general offensive system there, and it makes the whole wide receiver thing tough. One thing I found very interesting is you've got Sean Jefferson and Keenan McCardell there, the wide receiver coaches for Justin Jefferson and DeAndre Hopkins.
Right.
First of all, those are both guys the Patriots played this year, and they had to deal with receivers on both of those teams. I'm guessing that kind of plays a part in this. Well, I'm also looking at this, like, DeAndre Hopkins is a guy who obviously is going to get traded this summer. Yeah. So maybe this is not a recruiting pitch, but a feeling out process. You talk to him now, you can get a little bit of a better idea of maybe where Hopkins is.
Right.
And also Justin Jefferson gave a quote like a week and a half ago or something like that. Basically asked about his future in Minnesota, and his answer was basically, I'm going to go to whoever pays me the most. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I don't think the Patriots are going to trade for Justin Jefferson, but I remember there being rumors that they liked him that year. And now they're looking at his wide receiver coach, and they had to play against him. They know how hard he is to defend, and I'm sure they saw he did what he did against Buffalo in that game.
Yeah.
So look at this. It's like, hey, if they think they need a weapon on offense, put it all together. You're doing a little scouting here, I guess, minimum.
Right, 100%. And at the very least, and we know Belichick loves to do his due diligence, right? And so at the very least, it's let's look into these and kind of see what happens. But also, I think you got two guys you have a lot of respect for, and Bill's done this before, where it's like, hey, we're going to throw this guy a bone. There's some talk about the Patriots being interested in this guy. They don't necessarily have a formal interview or anything like that because that hasn't been how it's worked in the past. But he'll try to prop a guy's name up just by associating him with Belichick and the Patriots to say, oh, hey, the Patriots are thinking about bringing this guy onto the staff. And then all of a sudden people are like, oh, that guy? Oh, okay. Like he might, so it could be doing the same thing, for two guys that he respects in the league to give them a shot at an OC job. And, again, they may not get the job. They might not be ready to take that job, but it gives them an interview for offensive coordinator and it puts their name in the ring for other people. Nick Caley's the guy that, to me, I can't imagine the Patriots hire him. That wouldn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense
No.
at this point. I think you kind of throw him a bone by giving him an interview and almost like feel like you're almost coaching him up for an interview to try to go somewhere else to be an OC, if that's the
Well,
case.
he already did the interview with the Jets too.
Right.
I'd have to think partially you're interviewing him to hear what he has to say, and you give him the experience. I mean, I think if there's
Right.
one thing we know of Bill pretty soundly, like he does right by people, so I don't think he's gonna screw anybody over. I think he's just like and Kaylee's in the building. I think it would be wrong to look at OC, have somebody in the building who wants to be an OC, and not give him the chance to interview, even if he doesn't have a real shot at the job. Give him the look.
Correct.
And I think one of the things that's coming out of all this, like we're assuming Bill O'Brien is the guy, apart from reporting from Craig Bedard, who was saying that, oh, he isn't for sure the guy. Everybody else is saying he's the guy.
Right.
But you never know what happens in these interviews. That's the whole thing behind the Rooney Rule, too, is like you have to at least look outside the box. You have to interview people you may not have considered otherwise. And maybe you go in thinking this is our guy, and you come out of the interview thinking, whew, we found somebody better.
Right. Well, which is true, and that's why, like, I think I'd be really intrigued. So the biggest thing for O'Brien and the biggest feather in O'Brien's cap is that he's a QB coach too, right? And what he's done with QBs, I think that kind of gives him just an added advantage over anybody else because you're clearly in need of a good quarterbacks coach heading into this season, and you obviously don't have one on the coaching staff right now. And so you need one of those guys. And, Bill O'Brien, for all his faults as a head coach, is a great quarterbacks coach. He's coached up some really terrible quarterbacks to be good or at least serviceable and coached up some really good quarterbacks to be great. And so I think you have that where you can look at it and, they're talking about Bryce Young and Bryce Young was talking about how much, O'Brien has meant to him in his maturation process and him getting better. And so I think that's huge. And that's one of the reasons why I almost am advocating for two guys, right? To bring on a guy like, and I almost wish that McCardell and Jefferson were switched. If their roles were reversed, I think we'd be in a better position because Arizona's in a lot of flex. And I know Monty, who's obviously Monty Ossenfort, who's a former Patriots guy, is now the GM over there. But he has no real connection. He has no connection to Jefferson. Jefferson.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have any connection to him. But Jefferson already has the associate head coach title. Now, he doesn't know who the new head coach is going to be, but he has the associate head coach title. And maybe he'd take a linear move to come over here, right? And be the wide receiver coach / associate head coach like he is in Arizona because he knows that the culture over here is stable. He knows what he's getting. Whereas in Arizona, he has no idea who's going to get hired. It could be some guy that he doesn't really gel with or mesh with. And 1 year in, he's gone because they don't get along, right? Who knows, right? So he may say, you know what, I'll jump at that opportunity. But, you're going to have to then throw something at Jefferson to get him out of Minnesota because Minnesota's, you're working with three, I think, pretty talented. I mean, obviously, one amazing wide receiver, and Adam Thielen is older, but he's still producing. And KJ Osborne, I think has shown some ability.
That offense was really good this year.
Yeah, so you'd have to really throw something at him, and again, it might have to be that associate head coach / wide receiver coach. But I think bringing a new face in for the wide receivers would be a great thing, and would turn over that offensive system really quick, right? And it's funny
Yeah.
because you mentioned before, the guy who's the wide receivers coach at Alabama, you mentioned maybe bringing him along with Bill
Mhm.
O'Brien if Bill O'Brien gets the OC job. And that I don't think is out of the realm of is out of the question either. There's a possibility that something like that could happen, but to me, you need a full change on offense. You need a full change. We haven't seen enough growth from the wide receivers for years now. And so bring some fresh blood in and see what they can do.
And I think it says a lot. I mean, you look at the guys that they brought in. You got obviously Bill O'Brien, who has the connections, but he's the QB guy. Bringing
Right.
2 wide receivers coaches. Bringing Adrian Clem, another
Yep.
Bill Belichick connection here,
Yeah.
who's an offensive line and
Yeah, we
running
can talk
game
about
guy.
Yeah.
And Nick Caley, who's a tight ends coach. So they're looking at every aspect of the offense here for who's going to run it. And that tells me they think they can improve in a number of facets, which I think we all knew they could.
Yeah.
The passing game is going to get the attention too. Like, the running game, despite having 2 really good running backs there, was not that good this year.
Right.
Not as good as it's been in the past.
Should have been better.
They can. That's one of the reasons they struggled so much in the red zone. They got close and they could not run it in. They didn't have a goal line formation this year, which is something that rarely came up because they rarely ended up in that situation.
Yeah.
But that's an area where they could use growth too. That's where Adrian Clem is really, really interesting to me because he's done a very good job at Oregon. He's doesn't have as much experience as these other guys, and I think he's probably the second least likely outside of Nick Caley to get the job because of it. But he's another guy who, if they're looking for an offensive line guy, if they want to look into this and say we want to have an offensive coordinator and a run game coordinator, or an offensive coordinator and a pass game coordinator, like what happens in college, they like to segment this stuff anyway. Even in the past, when they've had Josh McDaniels, he doesn't do everything. They split up tasks. That's football. So we'll see. I wouldn't be shocked if multiple of these guys end up in New England. It's just, again, it's tough. It's only so many spots. And I think if they were going to clean house in the offensive staff, we would have heard about it by now.
Right.
We got the Shrine Bowl coming up too, which they're going to have the offensive coaching staff. Like they're coaching that. So you can't clean house between now and then. That's for sure.
Correct. Yeah. And that's, and then it's like, okay, if Billy O gets hired, well, he can't get down to the Shrine Bowl, right? And if Jefferson or McCardell or even Clem get hired, they can't get down to the Shrine Bowl. So like, so they're not a part of that, which is fine, but it is some nice on the job work for them. And then DeMarcus Covington, of course, over at the Senior Bowl for the Patriots, which I think is great. And so you see, they do have guys that are up and coming. I think that they have some really good young coaches in the coaching staff. I just think they don't have that experience just yet, right? Back in 2001, you had Charlie Weiss and you had Romeo Crennel, and those guys had years and years and years of experience. And then by the time you got to the second dynasty, you had McDaniels in there, and McDaniels had cut his teeth with the Patriots back then and, had been around for years. And, even Patricia on the other side had been here since 2001, 2002. And so they all, had been Patriots lifers and had been here forever and learned a ton. Now you get guys that, and Matty P and Joe Judge obviously have been coaching for a long time, but not on the opposite side of the ball, right? And you got a guy, Billy Yates, who, was playing for the Patriots 4 or 5 years ago, right? And so it's like, and so they don't have necessarily the experience that other guys did. But I do think that they have some up and coming guys. Gerard Mayo, I mean, shoot, how long has he been a coach? A few years, and he's already getting, some head coaching buzz without even that title, right? And so much so that the Patriots last week said, nope, he's staying with us, and we're gonna do whatever it takes to bring him in.
What does it say about the coaching staff right now? Too? Like Nick Caley, who did very little, as far as we know, on an offense that was not good, is getting OC interviews in and outside the building. Like that. That's how much this group is still respected from the outside, I think, and the whole Bill Belichick mystique is still, it tells you around the league what people think of Bill and the way they do things in the building and all that. Right. They ran low on guys. They had a bunch of guys. You have Patricia and Judge and Flores and McDaniels all leave for head coaching jobs in quick succession, and each one of them is taking assistants. So that's from 2018 on, and that. Like, we talk about how the Patriots have kind of been mediocre here since Tom Brady left. Let's not forget, that started while Tom Brady was here.
Yep.
In 2019, once they hit a wall in the midpoint of that season, that's when we started to see these issues come up. And it's not, that's part of it's drafting and talent, but
Of course, yeah.
they've lost a lot of coaches.
Well, and that's the thing, and again, on defense, you found Gerard Mayo. Steve Belichick, you didn't find him, but you brought in Gerard Mayo. You have Steve Belichick. You have some of those good young coaches. You don't really have that on offense right now, right? And Nick Haley, I'm sure, does a fine job, but like, I don't know. I haven't been super impressed with the tight ends. And so maybe, and obviously they could have handed him that OC job and they didn't. And so, to me, that tells me everything I need to know. He didn't get the job last year. And Tommy Karam was yelling about, like, he was here last year. Like, if you hire him now, what the hell are you doing? Right. I think they had no plans to hire him, and I don't think they have any plans to hire him right now. So, for whatever reason, it just didn't, the systems didn't mesh or whatever the case may be. And so we'll see. But they've found the guys, and not all the guys, but they found some of the guys to help out defensively. They haven't found enough of those young coaches offensively. And if they have, they haven't grown enough just yet.
Yeah, and that's I'd like to. I mean, and that it's one of the reasons why I'm not entirely sure they need to clean staff here either, because these coaches are so young, and if you get a better offensive coordinator, coaches under them probably do a better job.
Right.
Like maybe, the receivers haven't been great. Maybe Troy Brown is a little bit of an issue. Maybe the better offensive coordinator and Troy Brown having another year of this another year of experience under his belt, then all of a sudden things look a lot better.
Yep.
This offense was not good last year either. So even with just competent coaching, Mac Jones doesn't have to be a superstar. Mac Jones can be the 8th best quarterback in the AFC, right in the middle, or even the 10th best quarterback in the AFC. And the guys on offense can separate the way you think they can, and the offensive line lives up to the talent that's on it. This offense should be no worse than 16th in the NFL. Should be in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have the stud running back. You have some guys offensively that can get open. And then, you combine that with the defense that you have, and you're looking at an easy playoff team every year, right? And once you get in the playoffs, and we're going to talk about Super Wild Card Weekend, but once you get in the playoffs, it's one game. It's one game, and weird things happen. And, sometimes you win games and sometimes you lose games because of good coaching, and sometimes, or sometimes you lose games because of bad coaching, and sometimes you win games because of good coaching. And that just happens, and that doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl, but you can compete. And at some point, that's really all you can ask for. And then maybe a few guys make a leap, and all of a sudden, boom, there you are,
Yeah. Oh, speaking of coaching, the whole one game thing, I went back. I was watching finally got through the Bills tape this week from the Week 18 game. I wanted to look at the kick returns to figure out what happened. We were talking about Miles Bryant not making that tackle on the second one.
Yep.
I didn't really, when you watch it from the end zone angle, what you realize is that not one, not two, but 3 different Patriots players got tripped up on the play. Maybe one was intentional. The other 2 definitely weren't, just incidental contact and guys get tripped.
Right.
And then the guy who was trying to make the tackle, I think, got held on it. And that's how you end up with Miles Bryant as the last line of defense and something. I don't even know if that's coaching. That's just real bad luck.
Right. And that's, and unfortunately those things happen. And so and you lose the game. Really, and again, we don't know if that lost them the game, but it sure didn't help. So, maybe you still lose if you don't give up those 2. But
you're not doing yourself any favors.
Correct. Right. And especially against a team like that. And well, look, I mean, and I guess we can get into the weekend games, and they were just some wild games. Games. Go ahead.
Before I do that, I wanted to bring one thing, because I had texted you in the middle of the night the other night about this, and I figured it was worth bringing up on the show.
Yep.
I couldn't sleep. We were talking. I was looking into the DeAndre Hopkins trade, like the idea of him coming to New England. I was in my head. I was like, no, I don't think would Bill Belichick ever do this? Like, this type of thing he'd do. And then what popped into my eyes was the very wide eyes of Rashay Caldwell in the 2006 AFC Championship game, and how at the end of that season it became very apparent the Patriots did not have an offense that could compete. And they went out and they traded for a guy out west who people thought was washed up. It turns out still had a lot left in Randy Moss. And where Moss was in his career and where Hopkins is now, very, very similar points in their career. There's only 1 year of age difference, both on their second team, both got shipped out somewhere. And the price tag for Hopkins is going to be higher than it was for Moss in that one. And I think Moss had more character concerns around him than Hopkins does now. But we talk about the age concerns, and it's like, I don't think Hopkins is going to be Randy Moss, but he can be what he has been. He's an upgrade on what they have right now.
Yeah.
And they've done this before. That was the big takeaway, is we've made this almost exact move before. And I was getting flashbacks to just the way Bill recognized things after that offseason.
Right.
I feel like we kind of have gotten sucked into the mystique of the Patriot way, especially the end of the dynasty. You look at the 2018 team as one that won with defense, was very much a grinded out thing, and looked at having Gronk and the way things happened. And we forget the way things were from like 2007 to 2010, where they like really went all in on the offense, and the defense was terrible. And Bill made that happen. Like the offense, he made that happen. The defense made it happen too. But he's not afraid to be an offensive team if the weapons are there for the right price.
Right. Well, and I think too, the other part of it is that you already have some of that defense. And so you can go out and spend offensively. And so I am interested to see kind of what they do. I think it's a good parallel. Now, of course, they're very different players. Hopkins never had anywhere close to the speed that Moss had. He has less of that now. But he's just so freaking good. Technically sound, impossible. I mean, those 50-50 balls, Devontae Parker is talking about how, they're 80-20 balls with him. They're like 95-5 balls with Hopkins. I mean, he's nasty at that.
He's very good after the catch too.
Yeah.
Which I think doesn't get talked about enough, and which I think they really need on this team. I think they could use a jolt of energy somewhere with somebody after the catch. I don't know who you want to look at, but I want to keep Jacoby Myers, but also if you can get somebody who plays in the slot who has more juice after the catch than Myers, that opens up a different element. And if you were to trade for DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think you have to keep Myers. I think you can look for some other option. You could trade Kendrick Bourne even then, look for a better shifty guy to put in the slot, and you got options.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is interesting. It's really fascinating, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes. The thing with Hopkins is that, and you said the price tag will be more than Moss. Moss went for a 4th-round pick. It's still one of the best trades the Patriots have ever made. They traded out of the first round.
One of the best trades in NFL history.
Yeah, they traded. Well, my favorite part about it is that it's better than even just the 4th-round pick for Randy Moss, because they traded out of the first round with the Niners, got the Niners 1st-round pick in 2007 and the 4th-round pick in 2006. No, sorry. No,
07,
07, 08. So, so they get the 4th-round pick in 2007, 1st-round pick in 2008, 4th-round pick they trade to the Raiders for Randy Moss. 1st-round pick the next year winds up being number 7, which they trade back 3 spots and get Gerard Mayo at 10. And they picked up a 3rd-rounder, which ended up being Sean Crable, who sucked. But they end up with a 3rd, a 4th, and the number 10 overall, who ends up being the defensive rookie of the year in Gerard Mayo. So, it's
a future assistant head coach, probably.
maybe even future head coach. You never know. Yeah. So
almost definitely a head coach at some point in this league.
For sure, and maybe even here. Who knows? So, Charlie Foxtrot says that the Bruins and the Celtics both won. Looks like the Celtics did end up pulling it out in overtime.
Yeah, they won that. Hit a couple of big shots, won by 3. So big stuff. Bruins crushed the Rangers.
And they're so good. They're so good. Yeah. They've lost one regulation game at home all year.
To the Kraken. They lost 3-0 to the Kraken out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So, and they're doing it right now. Now DeBrusque's been out for like 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Because he got hurt during the Winter Classic. So they're doing it down a winger.
Yeah, and they're just
Bruins team is a ton of fun.
They're an absolute wagon.
They better get deep into the playoffs this year. I'm enjoying the run, don't get me wrong, but I'm terrified of this team hitting a wall in late April. And that's it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's like a few years ago, right? They won the President's Cup and got bounced in the 1st round, and you're like, well, what the hell's the point of that? What are we doing?
Well, they did. They were the best team in the league at the COVID stoppage. And then they had to go play in the bubble and just never really regained it. And I think that was 2014 when they were the President's Cup. It got bounced by they got bounced by the Red Wings. There were 2 years there, I think, where they were the President's Cup, and they didn't make it past the 2nd round. They got bounced the 1st round one time, bounced in the 2nd the other time, I'm pretty sure. I think 2012 and 2014. So
yeah, not great.
I don't know the last time the best team in the NHL regular season actually won the Stanley Cup. It may have, one of the recent teams may have done it, but as
Yeah,
of the last time the Bruins were there, I don't think it had happened.
yeah, which is not great. Which is
It's
not
tough.
great.
Hockey's a
You know,
hard thing. I love
yeah,
hockey. It's a tough sport to win.
yeah, I agree. I agree. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's get into Super Wildcard Weekend. Obviously 6 games over the weekend. Tom Brady got absolutely decimated. We don't even have to talk about the game. We don't. Brady's not
Going to
done,
Detroit.
but
He's
going.
checked out of Tampa. He's going to Detroit. He wants to
Oh, it'd
go
be
play.
so
He
good.
wants to play under Ben Johnson.
It would be so good. I'll tell you what, I can't imagine him going back to Tampa. I can't imagine it. That sounded like a goodbye press conference.
Have you seen their cap situation?
It's a disaster, isn't it?
They're I think $54 million over the cap already.
Yeah.
I don't think they can bring him back, even if they wanted to. This is the Patriots in 2019. The cap situation is so bad. Even if you want him back, you have to cut so much to get him on the roster that it's not worth having him.
Right. And the thing is, and we talked about this yesterday because Charlie Foxtrot's bringing up the Raiders, and I see it, I get it, but you're going to go to the West and have to play against Patrick Mahomes twice a year. Like,
hey, he did go to the NFC South when Drew Brees was there. So
yeah, but Drew Brees was cooked. I mean, we could all see that Drew Brees was cooked, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think so. My issue with the Raiders is that even a better destination than the Buccaneers right now. Like they have skill players too, but the Buccaneers have skill guys. The offensive line is terrible in Las Vegas. They have no defense. The only appealing things are you get to play in a fun city with a coach you like indoors.
Right.
You're gonna get hit. You're gonna lose some games. And if year one doesn't go well, McDaniels might be fired. And what do?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And Charlie's saying that the Raiders are better than Detroit. I don't think they are. I think Detroit's a better overall team. I know their defense isn't quite as good. The Raiders' defense is terrible too, but the Raiders, I think, have a better overall team than the Lions. I think have a better overall team than the Raiders. I do. I just think that they're at that point right now.
And a better coach team at the moment. I love Josh McDaniels. I don't have faith that he's the guy. We're seeing a couple guys in Detroit. Their offensive coordinator.
I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if I can say that Dan Campbell's a better coach than Josh McDaniels. But
I don't think Dan Campbell is a better coach than Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
I think Dan Campbell is an elite motivator of men, and then the offensive coaches they have under him are amazing, and they capitalize on that.
Right. And Charlie, you're 100% right. It is a much better city, of course. And Thad says to the Dolphins or the Jets. The Jets would just be next level trolling by Brady.
Can we block him for that comment? If Brady comes to the AFC East and it's not to New England, I'm going to lose my mind.
Imagine playing Brady twice a year. I mean, that would be.
I might not watch. I couldn't do that.
Man, the Dolphins, the Jets don't make any sense, but the Dolphins the Jets make sense. I shouldn't say the Jets don't make sense, but the Dolphins make a hell of a lot of sense. They make a lot of sense. But then again,
they just fired every coach there with ties to New England, and they also have no offensive line.
I know. Well, that's a good point. I always look at their offensive line as like a little bit better than it actually is, and it isn't. So
they have Teron Armstead. So it got better this year, and they have the weapons, and they have the coach. Like they're interesting in that way. I think Miami's probably a better destination than Las Vegas. But all the New England connections gone. They got that out of the building.
The hard part for me is that. And PFT was talking about this on Part of My Take, was saying, that when you watch, and I thought it was a really good, something that I saw too, that he pointed out, and I guess I saw it without really being able to vocalize what I saw. And then as soon as he said it, I was like, oh my God, he's totally right. Is that, Brady he doesn't want to get hit. He doesn't want to get hit. When the pocket collapses, he just gets rid of the ball. And you need a great offensive line. He's got to go somewhere that has a great offensive line. Detroit might have the best offensive line in football. And so that's why Detroit makes sense. Now, if you're going to find someone else that has another really good offensive line, fine. Wherever that is going to be. But, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and it's part of that too. Like we have seen Brady, like he'll stand in and take hits if somebody down the field is open. Nobody down the field is open. If he's no confidence in anybody's getting open, he's just getting rid of the ball. I think we saw that in 2019 too, which I don't think it's a coincidence that both the 2019 and 2022 seasons we're talking about are both immediately after Gronk left. That's It's probably the big thing here. He doesn't have a safety blanket anymore, right? And I look back to the 2015 AFC Championship game where he was just getting rocked. Didn't matter. He was just throwing it up to Gronk and letting Gronk do something.
Yeah, I think Gronk was a beast. By the way, Thad, we know you're a Patriots fan, and we know you just throwing out ideas, but it's same thing with us. It triggered Matt there for a second, so that's all.
I will say, Brady in New England is not entirely out of the realm of possibility here. Only in that, like, if Bill O'Brien comes back, Bill O'Brien is the only coach out there who has the same ties as a guy like Josh McDaniels to him, and offensive line in New England, I have faith is going to be better than it is in most of the other places we're talking about.
Yeah.
And the defense is really good. And I don't think Bill is 100% sold on Mac. If Brady said, hey, I want to come back, I'll guarantee you 2 years and I'll play this amount of money, you have to at least entertain the discussion. I don't think you have to sign him, but you have to talk about it, because if you get rid of Mac too, that could be an extra draft pick. You can go in and maybe put your chips back all in for 2 years here and see what happens.
Right. Hey, I mean, you're not wrong. And I would I would 100% be on board with it, regardless of how you feel about Mac Jones. I don't know how you wouldn't be on board with it. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. You never know. So
crazier things have happened.
That's very true. Yeah. So all right. So Brady gets killed. Hold on. Go ahead.
We were gonna talk about that. I realized there was other Patriots news that dropped today that we haven't talked about, which is the schedule for next year.
Oh yes, thank you.
Pats are playing in Germany.
They are.
We're losing a home game, which stinks.
They are losing a home game, but because of the 17-game schedule and the rotating extra game, they had 9 home games anyways. So now you're getting still 8 home games at Gillette Stadium and then 1 home game in Germany. So you are still getting those 8 home games. So like for me, who's a season ticket holder, I'm going to be paying actually a little bit less this year, you would think, because I'm not paying for the Germany ticket, obviously. And so,
I'm probably what you paid this. You're going to pay less than this year because it'll be 1 home preseason game and not 2.
Right. Correct. Yep. So I'll only be paying for 9 games instead of 10. And of course, I won't. The extra game won't be a preseason game like it was this year, so it won't be less. Well, it probably won't even be less, anyways. What am I talking about? But but who knows? So, but either way, you're still going to get those 8 home games, and I assume, and I might be wrong about this, but I assume that the 5 teams that they mentioned all have that 9th home game. Otherwise, why? It doesn't make any sense to take it away on a year where they only have 8 home games. So we'll see. But
yeah, I'm curious who they play over there, because I know in the past when the Pats had gone over to Europe, like we played the Buccaneers over there, and they kind of had the NFC game.
Right.
So I was thinking, all right, they play the Saints as their extra game next year. I was thinking maybe that's who they go with. But I look at recent ones. They played the Raiders in Mexico City when they did that, and the recent games that they've sent over there. What was it? There's Seahawks Buccaneers, which is an NFC one.
Right.
Who did the Jaguars play this year? I don't remember.
I don't even remember. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you any of those games, to be honest with you. But if you look at it, right, you're not going to play one of your divisional games over there. So it's going to be the Colts.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, I'm not so sure that that's the case. I think Patriot fans would be upset. But
divisional game, like
are the Bills getting? Are the Bills getting an international game next year?
I think the Bills are getting an international game already.
Then they're not going to do that, and they're not going to send the Jets or the Dolphins unless like Tom Brady goes to one of those places.
Right.
Or Lamar goes to one of those places.
Yeah. So you got the Colts, the Chargers, the Saints, like you said, the Eagles, and the Commanders, and the Chiefs. So those are your 6 games.
And it's not going to be the Chiefs.
And it's not going to be the Chiefs because they have another one too. Right. So both of those teams are out. Right. And so
I'm looking at going to Pat's Eagles with an Eagles fan friend. So if that's the one that gets sent, I'm going to be a little upset.
That's going to be frustrating. Yeah. Yeah. If I'm now, I think that I would assume now that the owner has something to do with it, right? Has some say in who is going to be over there with him. And so I would think if you're Kraft, you want the Eagles in Gillette because that's going to be a huge game. You're probably going to get a prime time game out of that. And so what you'd probably want to do is that ends up being a matchup that's going to be a 1:00 game that no one's going to care about, like the Saints or
the
like
Colts.
the Commanders or the Colts, something like that.
Well, and the
because
Colts,
you know what I mean?
Pats Colts was just at Gillette last season too.
Good point.
So I could totally, and it seems like they want to do the AFC one, like the
Yeah.
interconference ones or intra-conference ones.
Right.
So I bet it ends up being Pats Colts, and I don't like that because I love it when the Colts come to town.
Especially when we can beat them down.
I still have that residual hatred from. I mean, there's years of hatred with the Colts.
Oh yeah.
So I love anytime they come to fights. I wish every Colts football game had to be played in the snow at Gillette Stadium.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. 100%. Couldn't agree more. So, but anyways, so we'll see what happens there. My dad's already talking about trying to go to that game. I try to go to an away game every year. I don't know how I'm going to make that happen. It's just so expensive to get over there, and the time commitment to get over there is a lot too. So, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it happen, but maybe he will. You never know. So, and maybe I even will, depending on when it's scheduled. Who knows?
And maybe it's during Oktoberfest too.
Oh, well, that might sway my opinion a little bit. So we'll see what happens. But although I can't drink beer,
can we do a Pat's pulpit trip to to Germany?
I don't know if Bernd will pay for it, but we can ask. I mean, there's no harm in asking. All you can say is no, right? So we can visit him. Of course, yeah, we're gonna do a Pat's pulpit trip to Germany when he lives in Austria. I feel like that one's not gonna fly.
Yeah. Also, I want to mention it because we get the comment from Thaddeus Skywalker. I am also still salty about Deflategate in reference to my Colts comments. It's not just Deflategate. I go back to 03-04 with the complaining about the pass interference in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, when they changed the rules.
Yeah, Teddy Bruschi.
Yeah.
Change the rules. Change them. We'll still play and we'll win.
So good. So good. And Charlie pointed out, too, that the last President's Trophy winner was the Blackhawks, who beat the Bruins in the finals. So
don't remind me of that game. I tried to push that one out of my memory.
Devastating. Just devastating. Not that they were going to win Game 7, but still absolutely devastating to lose like that. All right. So now let's actually get into Super Wild Card Weekend. We talked about we didn't talk about the Brady game. We don't have to talk about the Brady game. That was an absolute just a butt whooping. We don't have to talk about it. I feel like the Seattle game we don't have to talk about a ton, although I will say I'm impressed with what I saw from Brock Purdy. He impressed the hell out of me. I thought that was interesting. I don't know. This guy's saying monkey for OC. I don't know who that is. Is that Bill O'Brien's nickname?
Is he talking about Monken, the guy from Georgia?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Oh.
So, but either way.
Yeah, that is. You say you're only 21. You became a fan when you were 6. All right, I'll send you some YouTube videos later, and you can catch up on some of the lore here. There
you go. So you were right. So Evan did say so. Is Todd Monken is the guy that he wants to talk about? And listen, he OC from Georgia. He deserves the love for sure. They did a ton.
I wouldn't hate that
this year. I wouldn't hate it either. Now, of course, there's been no smoke with that yet. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him get someone. I mean, back-to-back national championships, and Stetson Bennett's your quarterback, and your offense is really good. And they don't have. I mean, they only had George Pickens last year, but Pickens was really kind of hurt for most of the year last year. Like they've done a lot with not, dominant tight ends, but like who wins with dominant tight ends and quarterbacks?
They win on the line of scrimmage. They just keep churning out offensive linemen who Patriots could draft one or multiple.
They certainly might.
I'm fully on board with the Pats taking, was it Broderick Jones from Georgia, and also Darnell Washington, the tight end, who actually, I was listening to Prospects to Pros, the athletic podcast today. I mentioned Darnell Washington as a tight end, as a guy who could potentially convert to tackle down the line if needed because of his size and his ability to block.
6'8", right? Isn't he huge?
280.
Yeah, that's a big boy.
Which, we've had issues with blocking, and he's not an offensive lineman right now, but you draft a tight end who can do that, and I'll feel a lot better about all of the blocking that comes with it.
I wouldn't hate it. So all right. So here we go. So all right. So let's get into it. Seattle, San Fran. Again, I was impressed with San Francisco. I was impressed with Seattle. I thought that was going to be a blowout. Seattle came out, played hard. Geno's a good, Geno I think is an objectively pretty good player who's going to get a contract. Seems like it's going to be in Seattle still, but he's going to get a contract. I think he's proven that he can do it. And so, I feel like I'm happy for Geno. I also feel like the bubble was going to burst a little bit, and it did, on him. But for the most part, he had a pretty damn good season.
Yeah, he did. I mean, the 49ers, outside of the quarterback position, are so ridiculously stacked
Yeah.
That like it's. I mean, Brock Purdy did well. He didn't have to do much. I still not sold on him, but
Yeah. But he did okay. He did okay. Did enough.
he did enough to
You know what
win.
I mean?
That's.
Right.
I mean, at this
Right.
point, that's all we need. It's the playoffs. There is no past. There is no future. It's survive that week and get to the next
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I was impressed with I was gonna say, no. What I was gonna say was that Seattle, if you're a Seahawks fan, you got to feel great about the future, because not only do you make the playoffs, and of course you end up losing to San Francisco, which if you had won, it would have been great. But if you had won, it would have been like the biggest upset in a long time. But for them, you get the number 5 pick in the draft, because Denver sucks so much that you get rid of Russ and get a top 5 pick, and now you can rebuild on the fly while overachieving this year, which is great, So
incredible.
So good for them. So all right, and then the Saturday night game. Listen to me, everyone out there, boys and girls, lend me an ear, and let me just remind you that thank God you're not a Chargers fan. Just thank God you're not a Chargers fan, because that was everyone saw it coming. We all knew it was going to happen. We all knew it was going to happen. As it was happening, I'm sitting there saying, all right, Jaguars are getting killed, and they're probably not going to come back. But it is the Chargers. They certainly could blow it, and they blew it. And it's just
what was Bosa doing? Just some of the dumbest penalties. No need for it.
And that's the stuff. That's the type of stuff where it's like you can't, because the thing is that just don't say anything to the ref. Just don't say anything. What are you doing?
Well, that and the slamming of the helmet and just having an absolute temper tantrum, and then his coach is trying to help him out. He doesn't take it. Like he slams it again. Credit to him for taking ownership of it after the fact.
Yeah,
that's all well and good, but that's also not going to get the yardage back.
Can't lose your mind like that. And he got the penalty. So the slamming the helmet wasn't a penalty.
Yeah,
he got the penalty for talking to the ref, and he must have obviously said some choice words to the ref. And so that's why, to me, it's like, just shut your mouth and get off the field. What are you doing?
Yeah. I don't know what the ref was doing there, chasing him down, but I also don't think the ref chases him down unless he said something. And my guess is the ref's coming over to say, hey, I'm giving you a warning for this.
Right.
Or to talk to you. I mean, it's not uncommon for a ref to kind of go over to a player and say, hey, I'm not going to flag you for this, but if you do it again, I'm going to get you. We're going to have a conversation. I'm going to say, I didn't like this. I'm calling this tonight. You do it again, it's a flag. And my guess is he went over to have that conversation, and before you could even have the conversation, Bosa upped it another level.
And by the way, you said he took ownership for it, but did he? Because then he's over there talking about, the refs are saying, we got that guy, and laughing about it and stuff. And it's like, bro, what are you doing?
Well, he did. He took ownership for the helmet part.
Right.
People were blaming Brandon Staley, saying, he needs to control his team. And Bosa was like, he did what he was supposed to do, and I just ripped the helmet back and did it again. That's me.
No, right. 100%. But, he's not taking ownership for what he did. He's talking about how the refs are out there, out to get him and stuff. It's like, dude, stop it. This isn't
That franchise is so I don't care how good the Chargers look on paper. I'm penciling in our game against them next year as a win until the Chargers prove otherwise.
This is why you picked the Chargers this weekend. I'm like, there's no way. They're the Chargers. I will never pick the Chargers to win a game ever. I don't care what their lineup looks like. I don't care who the guys are. And you look at Staley. Staley avoided getting fired this year somehow. If this happens again next year,
because he got the team to the playoffs with all the injuries they had, and there was an improvement.
But then you had guys healthy, and he played everyone last week, and you got Mike Williams hurt. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like the whole, like, when it comes to what happened Saturday night, that's a team thing. That's on the head coach and everybody else. Like, Brandon Staley probably shouldn't get fired for that alone, but the fact that you get a receiver hurt by not playing him, I tweeted out, like, kind of saying I would want him gone. I'm off of that boat, but it's like, all right, he's got one more chance. You get new OC, you get some talent, because I think he did some good things. But he also totally like his whole thing was like, I'm going to play the metrics, I'm going to play the computer, all of that. By the end of the season, he was playing scared. He got scared out of all of that because of the way the media was talking about it. And it's like, you can't do that. You have to make what you got hired because you said, this is what I bring to the table and this is what I do well. You can't then bail on that when there's pressure.
4th and 3 up 10. 4th and 3 up 10 with 9 minutes left to go 8 minutes left to go in the game, and you kick the field goal, and you're at the 20-yard line. What are you doing? What are you doing? This all year long. This is what you've done. The last 2 years is what you've done, and you make it. You try to make it a 2-score game. You try to make a 2-score game a 2-score game. That doesn't help anything. If they
No.
scored a touchdown on that drive and make it 17, the game's over. And it's not necessarily over, but a 3-score game with 7 minutes left to go in the game, it's basically
And you're
over.
going to take more time off the clock.
Right.
And I think this is the other thing is, like, they didn't go for it because their offense wasn't that good.
Right.
It just wasn't. They scored a lot on short fields because of turnovers, because Trevor Lawrence made a couple mistakes in there and they got unlucky and all that. And
Yeah.
that Chargers offense, despite all the time, like, Justin Herbert's really good, but he has his issues and the rest of the team is not good enough to overcome that.
Right. Well,
So,
and some people will blame Joey Bosa for the loss, right? I think that's crazy because, Jacksonville had the ball now, 1st and goal at the 5-yard line or something like that. Like, I still think they probably score a touchdown and win the game anyways, even if Joey Bosa doesn't have that meltdown there. That meltdown, remember, only cost them 1 point. That went from an extra point to a 2-point conversion. And so, of course, it made it so that a field goal could win the game instead of tying the game. But maybe the Jaguars score a touchdown there anyways and win the game, and it doesn't matter, So, and of course, we don't know if that would have happened for sure, but like to hang it on, and I've seen people hanging on Joey Bosa. It's like, no, stop it. Like, no, don't do that. It was the whole team, and of course that was incredibly stupid of him, but it's everybody. It's just what happens. It's what happens when you play for the Chargers,
Yeah. And it's also, I had flashbacks to, like, Nate Kading. I was against the Jets in 05 or
Lord, dude.
Yeah, like I was getting that, like,
dude, Marlon
05 or
McCree.
06 or whatever.
Marlon
McCree. Well, especially because they missed the kick is what I'm saying. It's like with Nate Kading.
No, I know, but Marlon McCree ends the game. And instead of going down, he keeps running. It's like, what are you doing?
Patriots legendary defensive back Troy Brown saves the day.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy.
Also, I don't think we could talk about this game without mentioning how amazing that play they ran on 4th down was. That was so fantastic.
Awesome. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it's one of those things that you can kind of, not that you knew it was coming because no one really saw it coming, but even if you had an idea it was coming, it's still almost impossible to stop because you have to protect the middle. You have to put everyone in the middle because you can run it straight up the gut for 6 inches. But then all of a sudden Etienne gets the ball, and of course he's going to beat your guy to the sideline, and he just smokes him to the sideline. There's nothing you can do.
Asante Samuel Jr. The guy they ran it.
Yep. So
it was that whole QB sneak thing where they line up to push the quarterback. There's no shot that's going to be legal next season. They're going to outlaw that.
It never was legal. You never could do that, and now all of a sudden you can.
I think you kind of have been able to, and they just, like, nobody did it because you can get guys hurt. And then the Eagles realized that Jalen Hurts was strong enough to withstand it.
I feel like it used to be a penalty. I think
that's in college.
Well, maybe you're right.
Bush push.
Yeah. Well, that's true. So, all right, let next game, Minnesota Giants. Well, actually, technically, it was the Buffalo game, right? Was the 1:00 game, Buffalo Miami.
Yeah.
And this is where Josh Allen still has those bad plays in him. He has those bad plays, man. Those turnovers were ugly. He was missing open receivers. And if Jalen Waddle catches any of those long passes, they win that game. And they win that game comfortably, maybe. And if, Mike McDaniel, instead of vaping on the sideline, can get a freaking call in, and I know, and Dan Orlovsky is trying to make excuses for him and this and that, but dude, I'm sorry. You thought it was 1st down. It wasn't. It was 4th down. So you got them to push it up. Fine. That's okay. You did that. I'm totally fine with that. But the issue that I have is this. Very simple for me. You had 50 seconds. 51 seconds. You broke the huddle with 4 seconds left.
And it was a pattern all day long, too. That's the issue. So we all saw it coming. Right. And I think between this game and that Chargers game, like, we're seeing just young head coaches working through their flaws. Like, we're gonna learn from this. They're gonna grow from it probably, but it's rough to watch happen.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And it's like you just can't. That can't happen. That can't happen. I thought the play call on 3rd down sucked. I don't know what you were doing running up the middle when they stuffed the middle with guys and you're running up the middle.
I also thought they got the first on that.
I think he was short. Spot. What's interesting, though, is that they didn't get that call, but the Bills got the 1st down call on their final drive. And again, the Dolphins didn't get the ball back with like 20 seconds left or something like that. But still, the game wasn't over at that point. and that ended the game. So they gave the Bills the first down when they didn't give the Dolphins the first down. Not saying that the NFL wants anything to happen. I'm not saying that, but it is interesting that they gave the Bills a questionable first down and they didn't give the Dolphins a question. I thought he was short, but again, he was a half a yard short, just like the Bills were, and they gave the Bills the first down. So they could have easily given the Dolphins the first down too.
Yeah.
So
I have a working theory in here about Josh Allen, by the way, that if he doesn't think the other team or the other quarterback is that good, that's when he's just like, I'm just going to throw it down the field every time because they can't beat us and we'll hit enough of these that we'll win.
And you might
and then
be right.
And then I think this is one of the reasons why the Patriots have struggled against him so much is that, like, it seems like for the big games, that's when he puts in the preparation, and that's where he has that really consistent game plan. And, like, remember when the Patriots played the Bills in the playoffs last year, Josh Allen did not look good going into the playoffs. He looked really bad at points down the stretch. He had a game against Atlanta at home in the snow where he just had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
And the playoffs come, and he makes every single throw, and he makes every correct decision. Right. I think he just locks in against good teams and in big moments. And he didn't think, a Sunday 1:00 game against the Dolphins is a big moment. And again, with Skylar Thompson, and I can't blame him.
Yeah.
By the way, Skylar Thompson, there was a period in time on Sunday afternoon where Skylar Thompson was the best quarterback on that field, and it was the receivers that were letting him down. What a world!
Pretty crazy. So it just goes to show you, man, anything can happen on a football Sunday. So all right, next game, Miami, Minnesota, and the Giants. This one we both picked wrong. Although, like I say, on tally side, I picked the Giants to win, and in here I picked Minnesota to win. So, but Minnesota loses. I think everyone saw this coming. I think everyone in the entire nation saw this.
Nothing about this was shocking, except for and I thought, all right, the Vikings are going to do something in the clutch, and they couldn't put it together. And I think the Giants are legitimately kind of good now.
Right?
They're not good, but they're kind of good.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what happens in that Giants Philly game. So that's going to be interesting. So, anyways, not a surprise. Minnesota is who we thought they are, as Denny Green would say. They're frauds. They were fraudulent all year. They were 11-0 in one-score games, and they lost when it mattered most. And that's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the Sunday night game was just the Cincinnati game. That game was ridiculous. Because Cincinnati, that fumble return was nuts. I don't know what that play call was. Number one, I don't know what the play call was. Number two, I don't know what the hell Huntley was thinking. He's at the 2-yard line.
It was a QB sneak, and he was supposed to go low on it, and it looked like he had room too.
Yeah,
he decided to go. He had no idea where he was on the field.
Right. So the ball gets stripped out, and he picks it up, and there's a questionable block in the side / back. Mark Andrews almost chased him down. I looked at it very similar to the Marcus Jones one against the Jets.
That's all I was thinking of. If you get it close to the side, I have no issue with it.
Right.
And
because realistically, I know the hand ends up on the back, but he really hit him from the side to begin with. And then the hand is really just trailing on the back. So I didn't have a problem with it. Some people complain about it afterwards, but it is what it is. Okay, so fine. Mark Andrews tracks him down at the 4-yard line. Okay, you think they're not going to score? Come on, who cares?
Yeah.
So that's that. That was a wild game. Baltimore had no right even being in the game, but we said it on the podcast that you have to look at that and say it's a divisional game. It's going to be tight. It's going to be close. And so, that's how it's going to end up. And the funny thing is, I was going to say I picked the under. The under was 40.5, and it was 41. So, it just, but they nailed it as far as, the over-under as setting the line. But, yeah, not a ton of scoring. Good defense played by both. And, typical AFC North football where, hard-nosed, tough-nosed football. And it was just, a hard-fought game all game. And that fumble changes the whole game.
Yeah. There's a Ravens defense that's given the Bengals issues anyway. Yeah. And they did again. I'm not super shocked by that in this either. But they made enough plays to win, and Bengals D makes the play at the end, and that's your ball game. I'm very curious. We'll talk about it in a sec here, obviously. But this Bills-Bengals game, I feel very differently about it now than I did when they met in the regular season too. These teams seem to be in very different places than they were then. So I don't know what we're going to get on Sunday.
Right. Well, that's what's really going to be interesting to me, because They are 4 solid games, and so let's get into them. We're going to pick them again as we did last week. Last week, Matt, you went 2-4. I went 5-1 last week. Built myself a nice little lead. You picked with your heart, Matt. You picked with your heart and not your head. You wanted Seattle.
See, we're past like the Patriots season, so I'm just in this for fun. Like I'm rooting for chaos. I want weird stuff to happen. At one point I was sitting there thinking, can we get a Baltimore versus Jacksonville AFC Championship and a Giants Buccaneers NFC
That'd
Championship?
Hey man,
yeah, obviously not going to happen. But
no.
it's weird stuff happens in football.
Right. So all right, let's go chronological here with the divisional games. Jaguars Chiefs. Is there any chance that the Jags can go into Arrowhead and pull out a miracle?
Yes, but no.
Right.
It's kind of my if the right stuff happens, if that defense can force turnovers, I think they're going to have a real shot. I'm going to take the over on this game because I think we're going to get a lot of points. But it feels like one of those games. Like even the Jaguars that might hang around. Like this might end up being Trevor Lawrence and Patrick Mahomes going shot for shot for a little bit, back and forth, and then all of a sudden you're going to look up and the Chiefs are up by 10 in the fourth quarter starting, and they end up winning it by 17 or 21 or whatever because they just pull away at the end, and that Jags defense just can't get enough stops.
Right. And T-Law's then taking chances and stuff because he's down by 14 points and has to try to fit some balls in there that he shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can certainly see that happening. All right, Giants Eagles Saturday night. Same thing, man. I'm in the same position with this game. I wish the Giants could pull it out. I'm rooting for the Giants. They just don't have the firepower. Jalen Hurts now has had 2 weeks to get healthy. After that last game of the season, he played a little bit, but he really wasn't 100% healthy. I think that, I really look at it and think that there's no way the Giants go into Philly and win that game. Again, possible, just extremely unlikely.
I think they have a better shot than the Jaguars do, probably, because they've played each other a little bit more. Like Jags and Chiefs played in the regular season, but I don't know. I think the Eagles defense matches up really well against what the Giants do on offense, and it's going to take a perfect game from the Giants. But one of these teams can do it. But
yeah.
Can I also comment here on the fact we're both rooting for the Giants in this one?
I know.
Look how much things have changed. I still have I don't care that things have changed in Indy. I still have that pent up anger against them. That's gone for me with the Giants. I don't know where that went. That's a recent development for me. But
right. So the thing is, and Dad's not wrong, right? He's saying I'd rather see the Eagles win it all or see Dallas and the Giants. I get it. But the Eagles fans are just insufferable. They're just insufferable. And we also lost to Philly more recently than we lost to the Giants. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. Dallas, we'll talk about Dallas in a minute, but Dallas, I'm I don't want anything to do with Dallas. I don't want anything to do with Dallas.
Yeah. See, at least also with the Giants too, they're a little bit level. It's an entirely new group of people there than it was in 2007 or 2011.
Yep. Dayball, former Patriot, right?
Yeah, Daniel, as a Mac Jones fan, I feel I have to root for Daniel Jones. That's his long lost. That's his just goofier older brother. It would be hypocritical to root for one and not root for the other.
That's a good point. So
I like Saquon too. That story, him coming back this year, he's so much fun to watch.
He is.
Still a
stupid draft pick, but he's a lot of fun to watch.
If they pull off something out, that Giants defense is good. So I think they might actually be able to slow down the Eagles, but I thought the Eagles are going to grind this out by 10 points.
Yeah. So the Saturday games will be fine, I think. The Sunday games, though, man. So first up, Sunday afternoon, Buffalo, Cincinnati. And I keep going back and forth in this game. I desperately want to pick Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati can win this game. They beat the Bills last year in the playoffs, did they not? Or did the Bills?
No, they didn't play the Bills.
The Bills lost to the Chiefs last year, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And the Bengals beat the Chiefs, right? So, but either way, I want Cincy to win. I think Cincy can win. This is the Damar Hamlin game. Damar Hamlin's been spending time at the facility. He's going to be on the field on Sunday afternoon. He's probably going to lead them out of the tunnel. The place
Probably
is going to go
captain of-
freaking ballistic. He's probably going to walk out for the coin toss or something stupid like that. So I don't know how Buffalo now. Maybe Buffalo comes out too high because of that, and they're not focused, and they end up doing some stupid things and losing. But like outside of that, I don't see how you can overcome that extra that they have going for them, right? And again, combine it with the fact they didn't play well last week, and so they're going to be extra focused already this week. I want to pick Cincy so bad, but I don't know if I can. I just don't know if I can.
When it's tough, like this game should be played on a neutral site. If we're being honest with ourselves here, like of all the games that could have been in this, like especially the way things ended with that, like the Bengals basically were totally in on it with the Bills and saying, "Hey, we're gonna we know what's going on here. We don't want to play either. We'll sit this out." And that would have decided if the Bengals had a lead and were moving the ball when that game ended. Right. They had to cancel out.
But
if they had won that game, they'd be hosting this. And I think it's unfair to hold that against them.
No, I don't think they would.
Yeah.
Because what didn't the Bills?
They're one game back of the current standings. That would have been a tie, and they would have had the tiebreaker. So they head-to-head.
Oh yeah, I guess they would have had. Right. I suppose that's true.
Yeah. And that's from especially since they were they all did the right thing. Like if we're saying Bills Chiefs should be neutral site, I feel like this one should also be neutral site. And now you're in the position where after doing the right thing, the Bengals now have to go on the road in a playoff game with the guy coming back on the sideline in that emotional environment. It's a tough situation for them, that's for sure.
But I do think and I might be wrong, but I think that wouldn't the Bills have been the 2 seed no matter what? Wasn't that kind of the?
No, I don't believe so. I don't have the playoff thing in front of me.
I guess they both would have been 14-4. I guess I was thinking that because the Chiefs only had 3 losses, right? So they would have been
tied there, and the Chiefs would have had home field.
And the Bengals would have the 2 seed.
I said the Bengals. Yeah.
It is interesting that they didn't make this one a neutral site. That they made the AFC Championship game as a neutral site, but not this one. It just seems kind of strange. Because if that is the fact, then why wouldn't it be a neutral site, right?
Exactly. Especially with the way things went down in the I in some ways there's a better argument for this being in Cincinnati than it being in Buffalo, because you could have said, well, we're just going to end the game with the score where it was, and that means it's in Cincinnati, and Bengals had the home game and didn't get to do it and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think the Bengals are going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. I think they can be a better team than the Bills. My concern is their offensive line.
Right.
Because we're right back to where we were last year because everybody's hurt.
Yep. Yeah. So,
but I'm picking the Bengals. I'm
doing
it.
Love it.
Doing it.
I love
Warriors,
it. Finally,
doing it the second year in a row.
Hey, we got to do it because right now we had the first 2 we both picked the same team. So, so we gotta be a little different here. You're not gonna be able to gain any ground. So, all right. And the last game is the Sunday afternoon, late afternoon game, 6:30 game on Sunday. Is Dallas at San Fran, an old 90s matchup.
Great uniform matchup right here.
It's so good.
It's classic.
So good.
Although these Cowboys uniforms to me, I'm still not the biggest fan of, but
yeah, but you know.
Do you want a fun fact about the Cowboys uniforms?
Let's hear it.
Do you know why they wear pants? You know why they wear pants that are the color of the pants they wear? The pants and the helmet do not match. These are 2 different colors.
That's true. Yeah.
They do it because when the games were on black and white TV, the silver of the pants didn't look like it matched the silver of the helmet. So they intentionally made the pants a different color that on TV would look like it matched the silver of the helmet.
And they just never changed it.
Well, then they won in it, and now it's changed over time, depending on the manufacturer of the pants. Because now it's almost the powder blue the Chargers wear.
Right.
But it used to be just a little bit off white or off gray there, a little bit blue green.
It's a great little fact right there. I like that. Yeah. So this game is tough to predict. I'm going Dallas. I think it's crazy. I don't feel good doing it. I don't feel good at all doing it. But I'm going Dallas specifically because their defense is so good. And their defense, okay, that's not true. Their defense isn't so good, but they have
They have
so
Micah
many
Parsons.
different playmakers, right? They have Micah Parsons, he's like so good himself. He wrecks the whole game by himself. And what concerns me is that they absolutely decimated the Bucks. That concerns me because I feel like then their confidence level is a little too high going into San Fran.
Mhm.
But I also think that can work in their benefit, of course, because they feel good about themselves and they have the confidence going in as well. So I'm on the fence about it. I don't love it, but I'm going Dallas. Almost because I just want the Brock Purdy talk to end. I'm happy about Brock Purdy. I think he's played well, but let's pump the brakes a little bit, right? And so if Dallas can go in there and knock him off, then it kind of stops that Brock Purdy talk. However, if Brock Purdy keeps winning, it is going to be interesting to see what happens to Trey Lance over the offseason. So that's kind of why it's I don't mind either way. But yes, I'm going to go to Dallas.
I'm going with the team with the better uniforms. And that's the San Francisco 49ers.
I like it.
I think they're the better team here. I think Brock Purdy might have a meltdown, but also that Niners defense is so this might end up being by the end of it just a defensive slugfest. And Brock Purdy might make more mistakes, but he also has so much help from the guys around him that this might be one of those games where it's all right, Brock Purdy is gonna throw 2 picks, but the Niners offense is also going to have the only long touchdown of the day. And that's going to be a difference maker in a 16-13 type game.
There you go.
So I'm picking them. This has instant classic written all over it, by the way.
It does,
you get the sunset slot there on the West Coast.
Yeah.
2 classic teams like this. This feels like we're going to get a good one.
So good. I love it. That is with you, by the way. Chiefs, Eagles, Bengals, Niners. I like it. I listen. I mean, I think all 4 of those teams could easily win. But again, I go Buffalo because I don't know. I don't know if you can get over that hump. You know what I mean?
Tough. It's gonna be tough. Yeah. By the way, you mentioned the Trey Lance thing here. I don't think you do anything with Trey Lance. I think you're in a position next year where you're the 49ers where you're thinking about what you do for next season because Jimmy Garoppolo is playing well. Yep. Well, now you got a guy on a rookie contract who's playing as well as Jimmy Garoppolo was for you, and you still have Trey Lance. So you can just keep up the thing you've been doing, and you can have a quarterback battle, and whoever wins the job, and whoever doesn't is still – you either have a high floor backup in Brock Purdy if he doesn't win the job next year, or you have Trey Lance, who's an athletic freak who you hope has learned something there. And if he has to come in, he can come in for you. You just have 2 good options. You're not going to get a return on Trey Lance at this point that's good enough to be worth getting rid of him. So,
right. Well, I think the only question is someone dumb enough to give you a lot for Trey Lance? And
I don't think there is.
How do you feel about Trey Lance? What are your opinions on Trey Lance?
I think you only look to move on from him. I think if he's been really bad in practice, or if you're worried about his health to a serious degree. Right. Otherwise, he's on a rookie deal. You got 2 quarterbacks on a rookie deal, both of which you think can start for you and you can win games. No reason to trade him. That's as valuable an asset. Most teams would kill to have one of those guys. Right. If you think you can have 2 of them on your team, you keep them both because some guys get hurt.
That's a great point. It's a great point. And I will say the other part of it for me is that you gave up so much to get him. So much to get him that you just want to hold on to him for another year because you
can't turn around and after that you can't trade Trey Lance for a 3rd and feel good about it. Right, that's for sure.
Right, exactly.
Especially if you think he can start 4 games and win them for you. If Brock Purdy gets hurt, you keep him
100%.
Then you're not going to get more value
at the end of next offseason. Right, exactly.
Or you keep you're not even with that. You're probably not going to get the value back. He's on a rookie deal. Maybe you don't pick up the 5th-year option, but these 4 years, he's a very good value.
I agree. I agree. Good points. Good points made by you. So, all right. Okay. Let's do our final segment. We'll get you guys out of here. We're already over an hour. We got a lot of things to talk about this week, though. It's funny. It's the off season, but we still have a ton of. Well, it's not the off season really. It's the off season for the Patriots. But still quite a bit to talk about.
I was told when I was in pre-K that I was too talkable, and that I've lived that insult my entire life. You put me in front of a mic, I won't stop.
Oh, me too. Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I was telling, so we had a half day at school today, and I was like walking around. I filmed a TikTok after school today, and I'm like walking around talking to all the teachers, and they're like, so this is just what you do, and I'm like, this is what I do best. This is what I'm best at, is like talking to people. And they were like, yeah, no, that's true. You are. That's a good point. So, but all right, here we go. Final segment coming up.
And now for something we think you'll really like. This week in sports history.
All right, I will go first. I kind of stole it from you. I stole it from you, but it was a good reason to steal it from you. 21 years ago today. Okay, 21 years ago today, the Tuck Rule game happened. Just an absolutely incredible game. And so I was a senior in high school, and I'm at the game with my father and my uncle, and we got to the game, and it had just started to snow when we got to the game. And by the time we were done tailgating, my dad had a truck, and he had like you have like the cover on the bed, and there was like a good 3 to 4 inches of snow on the truck by the time we were done tailgating. We were there for like 2 hours, maybe, and we got like 4 inches of snow. It was ridiculous. And I just remember one of the guys clearing the path was wearing shorts. He was wearing like a jacket with shorts, and they had snow blowers, and they were snow blowing every 5 yards, so you could see the 5-yard markers. And this came up huge, and my dad texted me about this too. I don't forget. I wasn't forgetting, Dad. So don't worry. This came up huge earlier in the game, or I forget even the timing of it, to be completely honest with you. But the Raiders punted, and the ball just kept rolling and rolling and rolling, and so you didn't know where you were. The conditions were so bad that you couldn't tell where you were. You just knew a 5 yards, a 5 yards, a 5 yards. And so one of their, I forget the guy's name. I think he was a rookie safety, I believe, at the time. But one of their players went to go down the ball, and he was standing in the end zone when he downed the ball, thinking that he was standing like the 4. He was in the end zone and down the ball in the end zone, gave the Patriots a touchback, and got the ball at the 20-yard line. The Patriots are having a hard time moving the ball that game. If you pin them down there at the 1-yard line, I mean, like, who knows what happens? You know, whether the Patriots end up getting a safety, or they end up punting, and the Raiders get the ball at midfield or better. That was a massive turning point in that game, that punt, and no one ever talks about it. But that was a play for me that really changed things. And again, you just couldn't see what was going on. There was so much snow that you couldn't see anything. And I tell people I was in the zone that night. I could see one of my favorite plays was the Wiggins catch where David Patton dropped and Wiggins caught it. And,
I love that play.
You know, and so we're in the end zone, so they're going away from us, and everyone stands up because they think Patton caught it, and everyone sits down. And meanwhile, I'm still up and I'm screaming Wiggy, and everyone's like, "What the hell are you talking about, dude?" I'm like, "He caught the ball!" Like, it was insane. And then of course the kick happened. So the Tuck Rule, and I've told the story before on this podcast before, but not with you. You may not have heard it, but we're at the game. Of course, Tuck Rule happens, and it's like, all right, it's a fumble. Like, season's over. Like, that sucks. And they're like, oh, we're going to review it. And as the guy goes under the hood, and I Can Feel It Coming in the Air Tonight comes on by Phil Collins. And me and my dad and my uncle just looked at each other and were like, is something crazy going to happen right now? Like, that's what the hell? Like, we just had this feeling that like something crazy was going to happen. That song comes on, and we're like, oh my God, like I'm getting I'm literally getting goosebumps, like thinking about it. Like, we're like, this is like, something's going to happen. Something crazy is going to happen. And the guy comes out and says, and I still, you know, of course I've heard it since, but like, he said the quarterback's down is moving forward, and we all went nuts. Like, we didn't hear the rest of it. It was just like, okay, good enough for us. And you know, it was incredible. It was incredible. And you know, and the Raiders had so many opportunities. They had to stop us once. They couldn't. Then they got the ball. They had 2nd and 1, and they couldn't get a first down.
Yeah, the stop on that play on 3rd down there.
Incredible.
Who is it? The linebacker going over the top to make the tackle, and I don't remember who that was, but I'm gonna have to go watch my 01 page DVD after this. Now that we're talking about it,
it was awesome. It was awesome. That game was amazing. And of course, in Vinatieri's kick. So I sit in the end zone. I was in the opposite end zone for that kick. Of course, at the old Foxborough Stadium on the metal benches. And so it was extra cold that game. Reminded me, matter of fact, being in Green Bay reminded me of that because Green Bay has the metal benches still. But we're standing at that point. He kicked the ball, and I never saw it. I saw it leave his foot, and I was thinking like, oh my God, it's so low. Like it's so low. I just there's no way he's gonna hit that. And so I didn't, I mean, you could see the crowd. You could barely see the crowd on the other side, but I could see the refs. And I just remember the refs like looked at each other and were like, holy shit. And then put their hands up to it. And we just went ballistic. It was crazy. And the game winner was in our end zone, which was cool. So,
got all the guys out there with the big shoes, and Gruden calls timeout, and
it was awesome. Yeah, clear on the path. What are you doing? I'm trying to like we're cleaning. We're clearing the path for him. So
this is
what a memory that was. And of course, the final game ever played at Foxborough Stadium. It was awesome. Yeah, so cool. And prime of my life, 18 years old. Like, come on, it was great.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we're gonna go from that to my back in time is like something similar, but for my age.
Oh baby.
Yeah, this is January 20th, 2019. Pats Chiefs AFC Championship game. That's one of the best football games I've ever watched.
Yeah.
By the way, like just everything about the chaos of that finish. I've rewatched the ending to that game so many times. The way the defense was, I mean, they shut out Patrick Mahomes for the entirety of the first half, which ended up being huge because they couldn't buy a stop in the second half.
Right.
So they banked some points there in the first with some stops. And Philip Dorsett, huge touchdown in the first half of that game.
Yep.
Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel, Gronk making a catch. Remember Tony Romo on the call. I still remember watching that my on-campus apartment there in college with a couple of my friends who, if you're listening, we all remember that night very fondly. We had basically the same group for that game and the Super Bowl. And at some point in that process, we just every time we needed luck, we all put our hands on the ceiling at the same time. No matter where, so we have to like stand on stuff just to get our palms on the ceiling, and we were just. And I remember by the end of that game, I think we were just all watching it, standing on furniture with our hands on the ceiling.
That's crazy.
The Patriots drove down the field. Oh, also, there's this random YouTube video that's amazing to watch, with this Australian rugby player who like watches football highlights and reacts to them. And that was one of the first ones that he watched where he like knew what was going on with football, and his reactions to the catches that Edelman made and ones the plays everybody, and the temperature with it being that cold for that game. He was losing his mind at people playing in short sleeves in that temperature.
Yeah. Well, and Romo, you mentioned it. Romo calling out, all right, 3rd and 10. They're going across the middle. They're going to run. Okay. You look at this safety. If he goes left, he's throwing to the middle. If he goes to the middle, he's throwing left. He's going to make him cheap. And we're like, okay, Tony, all right. Like that was the first time when we really saw that, So, that was fun. That game was awesome.
Thank God for D Ford.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I mean, lining up, and he's like, "Was I offsides?" I'm like, bro, you were like 3 yards offsides, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
The inside the NFL cut up of those the highlights from that game is just.
Oh, it's
amazing. Awesome. And like the back and forth of that second half, like that was the Super Bowl that year. The way things ended up going and the way it played out, like just dramatic. And that was in some ways, that was kind of the birth of Patrick Mahomes. Like we look at last year's divisional game, Josh Allen going to Kansas City, and they lost, but everybody came away from that game being like, oh boy, Josh Allen is the real deal.
Right.
Look, that's kind of the Patrick Mahomes one where they lost, but he willed Kansas City back into that one.
It was. No, you're 100% right. I mean, it really was incredible. Really incredible. So
that's
it's
interesting. To watch those highlights before bed too.
Well, so it's funny because I was at my buddy's place, and my buddy Jeff has what's it called? He has YouTube TV.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And so, well, not even a delay, dude. Not even a delay. How about this? Not even a delay. This man, the feed shut off after the Edelman play when they're reviewing it. The feed shut off, and I'm like, scream like, "What happened?" I'm like yelling. I'm like, "You gotta get it." I was so mad, dude. And so then it was like, I'm like, oh my Lord, dude, like horrifying. And then it finally came back, and and the first play we watched was the interception. And I was like, well, there you go. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, come on, dude.
Brutal. That play we all thought was going to be such a huge play in that game. It didn't end up mattering at all, like the Edelman thing.
No, it didn't.
That happened because it didn't hit his hand, and then you have to turn over anyway, and we just kind of were back to where we had been. But yeah, insane game. I'm also remembering now. I remember cooking wings in my apartment for that one. That's when I love cooking wings for playoff games. That was the first time I started doing that myself.
Really?
And I went to do it for the Super Bowl 2 weeks later, and the grocery store was entirely out of wings, so I had to do drumsticks for that. I still won. Now I want to go make some wings this weekend.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I believe, by the way, I'm trying to look up the because ESPN does a bad job of saying what was does a bad job of saying like what was a touchback and what wasn't. I believe though that punt that I was talking about in the Tuck Rule game was early in the second quarter. Patriots down 7-0. To the Raiders. And so, of course that would have changed things. That would have changed a lot of things. So, and how about this? They punted from the Patriots 36. It was 4th and 5 from the 36, and they punted from the 36.
Oh my goodness.
So, but it was one of those games. It was one of those games you couldn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
there's just, and I'm going through the game log here on Pro Football Reference.
Yeah. I believe it wasn't.
Makes sense.
Because I don't think the Patriots started the 20 for any other thing. So I believe that was the case. Yeah, Russian TD. Yep. So, and I know for a fact
their second drive. Yeah. So that's that. Oh my God, what?
It was great.
That is walking for the best non-Super Bowl win. Is that the Pats Chiefs one? Because that's got to be up there. When it comes to non-Super Bowl Patriots games, Pats Chiefs is has to be top 3.
Pats Chiefs.
Pats Raiders snowball is probably also top 3.
Yeah. Well, and then you got the Jags game like they're talking about. You also have the Ravens game where they came back down 14 twice. So they got, we talked about that game last week. Didn't we talk about that game last week? So it's like, it's some
and it was a blowout. I'd put either of the Pats Colts games from 03 or 04 kind of in that category of just really, really enjoyable to watch. Like,
they were. Yeah. Well, especially
super satisfying.
What was it? 03 when they hadn't punted. And then, and we actually said going into the game, I said, they're not going to punt. They're not going to punt on the first drive. We're going to pick them off instead. And then I got very nervous because they drove all the way down the field. Zone. And then
Rodney Harrison
threw a pick. I was like, all right, I was right. I told you I was right.
Remember, you got the Rodney Harrison pick, 3 from Ty Law, and a forced. You forced 5 turnovers against that. Patriots beat the co-MVPs back-to-back to go to the Super Bowl in 03.
Yeah, it's no
People
joke.
Sleep on that.
It's no joke.
They held them to 14 points each.
Yeah, that 2013 team was no joke. So
03, but yeah.
So that's what I meant to say. 2013. Man,
2013 team was also no joke, but not in the same way.
Yeah. No, the years run together. So, but anyways, all right, we gotta get the hell out of here. We're almost an hour and a half here. So, thank you everyone for showing up. We appreciate it, guys. We'll be back next week talking about the divisional round and then previewing
maybe a new offensive coordinator in the process.
I would imagine. I would hope at this point. And maybe we'll actually get some clarity on the Gerard Mayo situation as well, what his role will be.
I think it's also worth noting there, just because we haven't talked about it that much, the Shrine Bowl that the team's going to be coaching is February 2nd. So I think there's also a chance no coaching changes happen.
Good point.
Until after that.
Good point.
Which maybe we can talk about that next week too. We have the rosters are starting to come out. So
yeah, some of those guys, and we're going to get into
BC
prospects.
Receiver. Pat's coaching a BC receiver in this game.
My boy,
Zay Flowers.
So we're going to get into guys. We'll do some deep dives in some players. We haven't totally figured out how we're going to do it just yet. I don't think we want to do position by position. So we'll figure it out. Yeah, but
we'll do something.
Either way, lots of good stuff coming for you. So thank you very much for tuning in. Love you guys, and we'll talk to you next week.